what I want to understand is Graham still, and we talked to Dr. John Thaloni about this, has this scarcity mentality when it comes to a lot of different areas of his life, specifically financially. And you have this abundance mentality in the exact same way that Graham has a scarcity mentality. It bleeds into every other part of your life. And what I find really interesting, and I don't mean this in any sort of like nag or a dig or anything, Graham has a lot more money.
A whole lot
Yet
more.
he still feels this scarcity. And I really respect, and I just want to like decode how you have this level of peace and abundance in your life with such less money.
Got paid off mortgage.
It's the paid off
But
mortgage.
it can't just be that. It has to be
No.
something else. Because what is it that led you to paying off that mortgage?
I think if you really look at the emotional underpinning of it, it just comes down to contentment. Like I know it's that simple and it's that hard, right? To be like, well, I'm just content. Like I'm a very anxious person naturally. And so to remove any level of, pieces of anxiety out of my life, one of those being debt, has been really helpful to give me a little bit of just peace. And so I think at the end of the day, I'm content with where I'm at. And yes, I still have goals and there's things that I'd love to do, but I don't have there's no end game. There's nothing like, well, once I get 5 million, I'm retiring and that's it. Now I hope to have 5 million one day in a retirement account and we're able to retire and still have a great income and go on amazing trips and all of that. But I have no end game. What I've been trying to do as I get older is just live in the present instead of always going like, well, what's the next thing? Because for too long, for the last 10 years, I've been doing that with my career, with my financial goals, with whatever it is. And so I'm truly, and it's something I'm still working on. This is not like I have not mastered it. I'm not like some kind of Zen Yoda character. I just truly suck at living in the present. I'm always thinking about what's happening tomorrow, what's on the schedule, what are we going to do, what about that thing? Instead of just, now that I have a baby, I think it changed the way I view my time, the way I view money. And like you stare into this baby's eyes and like time just like disappears. Like it doesn't matter anymore when you're staring into that baby's eyes. So I think having a family changes the mentality around that. I'm curious as you progress and you have a family or you have kids or whatever, I wonder if that's going to change that for you and if you have a different set of goals and a different lens.
I find that interesting.
But
that
it just
you
feels like
relate
it's
it.
exhausting because I'm like, there's no end. Like, I don't know. If I could go start a business and make $100 million, how would my life change? Would it make it worse? Maybe. And I think that's something a lot of people don't think about. Because with more money and more responsibility, it changes things.
If you got everything you wanted, would you be happier? Who's to say?
That's the question at the end of the day. And what do we want? I don't think we really know as humans. And I do think we've talked about this before. My faith is a big underpinning of this that I think I'd be remiss to not mention because I think it changes your long-term view of life. Of like what's happening ahead when I die. What has this all been about? You start thinking about those big questions. What I want people to say about me at my funeral. Are they gonna be like, man, his YouTube videos were hilarious? I doubt it. I think they're gonna say he was a great friend. He was an amazing husband. He was a loving father. That's what they say. And we joked about this on your gravestone. Your net worth's not going to be like written on there. And Graham's like, mine will. I was like, that's actually a pretty baller move, and I respect the hustle there. But it's like, what is this all for? Like, let's say you go in the dirt. What happens then? Who would you leave your money to? What impact did you have? Did it make any impact at all? And so to me, now I'm like, what is the ripple effect I want to have? Well, number one, I want generational wealth for my family. I want my daughter to inherit whatever legacy we've built up and nest egg, and for her to manage that wisely and for her to live a life we can't imagine because of the work that we did and the sacrifice we made. I want to be able to give to charities and pay for an adoption and buy single parents cars and just do things that like make we just gave 10 grand to Waffle House employees in 3 hours. And to me, that was the most fun I've had with money in a long time. Way more than buying my wife a new car, way more than paying off the house. To see someone's life change instantly because of something I was able to do that was in my control, I'm like, that's amazing to me. And so like the stuff Mr. Beast is doing, of course, like that's the stuff we're going to be talking about for generations to come versus look at the net worth that he amassed. You know what I mean?
I like that. I like giving to people that are working at Waffle House. And I know that sounds silly, but I'm a big proponent of like I like to tip big. That's like kind of my way of giving back.
Amazing.
Like I generally tip higher percentages, a lot higher than the average person. And that's kind of like, I take a lot of pride, I think, in that. And
but
I love
you're able
that
to do that because you have margin.
Yeah.
Like
right.
if you were broke and you had payments up to your eyeballs, living a lifestyle that you were trying to maintain, you wouldn't be able to give in that way. And so that's one of the reasons that I want people to live debt free, because you can't help but have more margin to do those things when you don't have payments to make.
What I find interesting is you said that your anxiety comes from you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And that's the same thing Dr. John Deloney said. And that's the same thing I see in Graham whenever he's explaining his financial anxiety is like, you don't know what could happen to the market. It could half. And then once it halves, you don't know what could happen from there. And then you don't know what can happen from there. It's never like stuff that is
It's like
current,
apocalyptic
that is
scenarios.
currently
It
ever
is.
happening.
Like, do you ever have a real fear that like the world could end? Because at that point, what are you going to do?
No, I don't. I have a fear that our
Like stock
growth
market goes to zero.
No,
you
no.
know?
Let's just say the worst case, 1929 happens, something crazy like that. Let's just say it's 50%. Well, then you take 50% off everything, let's just say. Then how could I live off that 50%? Okay, I'll find a way to live off the 50%.
Now that's if
But
you're
then,
like at retirement age. Because if you just
no,
hang
but
on,
I
hang on to the ride,
also assume that my income goes to zero. I just assume like I'm somewhat like
Wow.
incapacitated.
YouTube is shut
or,
down.
Or that I just choose
Real
voluntarily
estate.
where I don't want to be forced to do something. So I take it in
Yeah.
half. How could I live off the half? I live off the half. And then I kind of think, well, I want a bit of a buffer on top of that, just to give myself some flexibility in case things get even worse. So that's how I kind of think of things. I want to keep the lifestyle without having to worry about if things drop
but
by
what
half.
lifestyle? Because you're a pretty frugal guy. If things like really got tight, you would be fine.
I'd find a way, but I don't want to downgrade because it's like every year I've increased my lifestyle a little bit. Like let's just say it's 5% a year.
Okay.
But I do that purposely so that I can sustain that. Sustain. Why can't I say?
It's a hard one.
I want to be able
It's
to
a challenging conversation.
sustain that sort of lifestyle creep.
But I
So
think
I
people,
purposely do it a little bit every
people
year.
making a tenth of what you make spend more than you do in a month.
Yeah, but just because I want to be able to sustain that, like, lifestyle creep and never have to worry about it. So, yeah, you could spend way more. You can spend 100%.
But you also, know how to make money. Like that's, I think, a skill that will carry you through any,
but
thick or thin.
I like not being forced to do that. Like, anytime I feel forced to do something, I just don't like doing it
It's
for
less
whatever
exciting.
reason. Yeah, I like doing things that...
If I was like, Graham, you have to make these videos every week, you'd be like, screw you,
Oh,
man, I'm
absolutely
not doing
not.
it.
Just having the freedom to say, if I want to stop at any point, I can. And that makes me very happy.
Yeah. And again, that kind of freedom, I think you have more options when you have no debt.
Yeah.
And obviously you have your
Like-
cash position that you've talked about. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I could pay it on, I could not. I just feel like at the end of the day, I'm going to have less stress about it if things go downhill having no debt.
Yeah, like a while ago, I got an offer to buy a part of my main channel. It was very enticing because the valuation they were giving me on the main channel was insane.
This is
And it
like
was,
Shark Tank.
Yeah, it was 2021 though, and I knew that like this is the cheapest money is ever going to be. It was a startup company that had a ton of venture capital. They were valuing it way higher than I ever thought it was. But they said that I'd have to create 3 videos a week for the next 5 years.
Oh.
And that for me was killed it.
This reminds
Was
me of like
never
the
have
genie
done
in
that.
Aladdin, where he's like,
Yeah.
he's forced. He's got the handcuffs
Yeah.
when he's working for
Yeah,
Jafar.
and but
Remember
I mean,
that?
yeah, it was a minority stake, so it wouldn't change anything. But it was just like the output had to stay the same.
Yeah.
I knew I just don't want to be locked into making 3 videos a week for 5 years. It sounds
Yeah.
bad. It's just like,
Well,
I don't like
that's the
being
thing. We
forced to do
all
that.
want options and freedom.
Yeah.
And so we have different paths to get there. But I just think mine has proven over time to be a path anyone can take.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people can be. I mean, you guys are successful. You've done it your way. And I think a lot of your tribe and audience, they'll do it your way and they'll be okay. Like the fact they're even watching this channel tells me they're going to be okay. But we talk to very different people. Like the people we're talking to, they're going through things. They're not watching YouTube videos for fun. They're watching them because they need help. And so it's a very different mindset. And so I try to entertain and it be informative. But at the end of the day, like there's people who need help. And therefore, like I can argue about credit card interest all day. But there's a single mom who's about to call in and be like, I just lost my husband. I got 3 kids. Do I do daycare? What do I do? And so I'm like, holy crap. Like there's real problems in the world. And this is a luxury and privilege that we get to even have these kinds of conversations.
That's very
So
true.
I think in my role, it just, you have a very different perspective seeing what people are really going through. And it makes me more averse to risk and to debt because I've seen what it does to people,
Yeah.
Like Andre, like he's like, I've seen my family struggle with gambling addiction. I'll never gamble. It's not interesting to him. And the same happens with debt to me. I'm like, I've seen too many people hurt by debt. Why would I want to play this game only to get bit by a snake later on?
Yeah. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned from Dave Ramsey?
I think his tenacity and grit and perseverance is awe-inspiring. Like the fact that this guy is still at it 30 years later with more energy and more passion than ever before. I'm like, I want to be that invested in whatever I'm doing. And so he keeps us on our toes. But what I've learned from him there is that work is about more than work. Like it's not a job. It's not something where I'm just like, I'm doing it for the paycheck and one day, I'll call it quits. Like this dude is going to keep going until he can't keep going, and he'll probably outlive me just out of sheer spite. But his passion around it has just really inspired me to go like, obviously that thing for me is personal finance, and I didn't realize that until later on in my life. But also the way he's leaving a legacy, like the way he's thinking so future. I mean, he's been thinking about personalities for a long time. You guys talked about this. His succession plan. You joked about Dave Ramsey's retirement plan. Everyone's like, no, Dave, don't go. I'm like, he's not going anywhere. But it was a good title. I'll give you that. So it's just made me think more big picture, more long term, and less about like, what am I doing? What's my thing? And more, what's everyone around me? How are they being affected by my life? And so that's a really interesting way to frame things up.